cities can be remarkably long-lived creations. It is a rarity when one perishes. When they do, there is likely a lesson to be learned. Cahaba, Alabama, at the confluence of both the Cahaba and the Alabama rivers. The site of two now extinct towns. The first one, a Mississippian town, established here in the 15th century as a distant northern outpost of the Bottle Creek or Pensacola culture, which was itself predominantly located along the modern Gulf Coast. It had earthen mounds, palisade walls, and other earthwork features, some of which you can still see today. The town seemed to disappear around 1540, right about the time the conquistador Hernando de Soto was pillaging through the U.S. Southeast. Diseases brought by the Spaniards depopulated the entire region and may have affected Cahaba. One of the bloodiest battles to occur within modern U.S. territory, the Battle of Mabila, may have occurred near here between De Soto's forces and the Mississippians. After the collapse of the Mississippian civilizations, the area was briefly controlled by the Muskogee Confederacy, one of the myriad successor nations to the Mississippians. That control was contested by the British and the French, then the United States. As the United States expanded, the Muskogee people, who had been there since before De Soto's incursions, were pushed out. In 1819, the new state of Alabama chose Cahaba as its first state capital. Rampant land speculation quickly resulted in a new Cahaba. Thousands of dollars were poured into development. The European version of Cahaba was a boomtown, the largest hotel in the state, ferries, banks, a 2-story Capitol building, theaters, stately mansions, and sprawling plantations. But there were malaria outbreaks, national economic panics, and recessions too. General Lafayette, a national hero in both the United States and France, toured the U.S. in 1824 and 25. He and his party visited Cahaba and were received by an elaborate reception that included then Alabama Attorney General Henry Hitchcock. Lafayette dined at the State House and entertained members of the nearby French wine and olive colony, a collection of people who fled France after the fall of Napoleon Bonaparte. After the state capital was moved elsewhere in 1826, Cahaba carried on as a county seat, populated by thousands, and did well as a river town dependent on cotton and slavery, until the U.S. Civil War came. During that Civil War, the town became a Confederate prison, housing thousands of captured Union soldiers. It was a hard imprisonment for most. Attempted escapes were punished swiftly. Some soldiers died without history remembering their names. The infamous General Nathan Bedford Forrest, future founder of the Ku Klux Klan, conducted a prisoner exchange here. After the war ended, 2,300 freed Union prisoners were shipped on board the Sultana from Cahaba. The Sultana exploded and sank near Memphis, becoming the worst maritime disaster in U.S. history. After the war, Cahaba became a refuge for newly freed slaves and a political center for radical republicanism. African Americans became landowners here, businessmen, contributors toward a newfound political reality. Several of Cahaba's black citizens became involved in state and national politics, but by 1870, the town population fell to 500, down from a pre-war height of near 6,000, and it continued to fall further. The Kirkpatrick family lived here for 3 generations. The family started a farming business which carried through from the 1860s and mostly involved pecan trees. As the town slowly died, the Kirkpatricks bought up more and more of the town and dedicated it to pecan farming. This carried on until the last Kirkpatrick moved away in 1940. Many buildings were dismantled in the early 20th century, sold for scrap. Others have collapsed, marked only by a pile of bricks. Wilderness reclaims the rest of Cahaba, block by block. The town was unincorporated officially in 1989. Remnants of early botanical decisions still grow here. A few buildings still stand, the city's street grid can still be seen, and pottery and earthworks from the 15th century Mississippian town are still present. But the reason Cahaba ultimately failed is still largely unknown. It faded into ruin right in front of history's eyes, and we aren't quite sure why. Whatever the lesson is, it goes unlearned.